What if the most famous horse in history wasn't a horse at all? For centuries, the story of the Trojan horse has captured our imagination, a tale of cunning, deception, and the fall of a mighty city. But what if the truth behind this legendary beast is even more surprising than we ever imagined? We've all pictured a giant wooden statue, hollowed out to hide Greek soldiers, wheeled up to the gates of Troy. It's a story told in countless books, movies, and works of art. Yet when we look closer, the reality may be far more practical and even more ingenious than the myth suggests. The image of the Trojan horse comes from Homer's epic poetry, written centuries after the war itself. These stories were shaped by generations of retelling, each adding new details and embellishments, blurring the line between fact and fiction. But archaeology and history hint at something different. There's little evidence for a giant wooden horse, but plenty of clues that the horse may have been a metaphor, not a literal statue. The real story might be hidden in the ruins, waiting to be uncovered. Some historians believe the so-called horse was actually a massive battering ram, covered in animal hides to protect it from fire. Soldiers may have nicknamed this powerful siege weapon the horse, because of its size and strength, or perhaps because it was decorated with a horse's head. Over time, as the story was retold, that nickname could have transformed into the legend we know today. Oral tradition has a way of turning practical tools into symbols of cunning and trickery, especially when stories are passed down for generations. Others suggest the horse symbolized something even more powerful, an earthquake. In Greek mythology, Poseidon was the god of both horses and earthquakes, and he was believed to have the power to shake the very foundations of cities. Survivors of Troy, unable to explain the sudden destruction of their city's walls, may have described it as the work of Poseidon's horse. In a world where gods were blamed for natural disasters, this explanation would have made perfect sense. The story of a wooden gift left at the city gates could be a myth, created to explain a disaster that no one truly understood. Over time, the details blurred, and the tale became a symbol of both Greek ingenuity and the mysterious forces that shape history. The Trojan horse is a puzzle, part myth, part reality, woven from real events, poetic imagination, and the need to make sense of the past. Each piece of the story reveals something about the people who told it, and the world they lived in. What really brought down Troy? Was it a clever trick, a mighty weapon, or the wrath of the gods? The answer may be lost to time, but the legend endures, reminding us that history is often stranger and more fascinating than any myth. Before we question the legend, let's recall the story that's echoed for millennia. This is a tale that has shaped Western imagination, retold in countless books, plays, and films. A myth that has become almost inseparable from the idea of ancient heroism and cunning. For 10 long years, the Greeks besieged the mighty city of Troy, their armies camped outside its formidable walls, unable to breach its defenses or force a decisive victory. The war dragged on, with both sides suffering losses, and hope for a swift end faded into legend. Desperate for a breakthrough, the clever Odysseus devised a plan that would change the course of the war forever. The Greeks would pretend to retreat, sailing away and leaving behind a colossal wooden horse as a supposed offering to Athena, the goddess of wisdom and war. Concealed within the hollow belly of the horse were the Greeks' bravest and most skilled warriors, hand-picked for this dangerous mission. The Trojans, believing the war was finally over, gathered in the city square to debate the mysterious gift's purpose. Some saw it as a peace offering, others as a trap. The priest, Laocoon, suspicious and fearful, warned his people, "I fear the Greeks, even when they bring gifts." But his warning was tragically ignored after a supposed sign from the gods. Sea serpents emerged from the waves and killed him and his sons, convincing the Trojans that the horse was indeed sacred. Convinced the horse was a divine gift, the Trojans tore down part of their own city wall to bring the massive structure inside, celebrating what they believed was the end of a decade-long siege. That night, Troy erupted in celebration. The city was alive with music, laughter, and the glow of torches, as its people rejoiced, blissfully unaware of the danger lurking within their walls. Meanwhile, the Greek warriors hidden inside the horse waited in tense silence, their hearts pounding as they prepared for the moment to strike. The city feasted, sang, and rejoiced, convinced that the war was finally over, and that peace had returned to Troy at last. The stage was set for Troy's downfall, as the city's fate hung in the balance beneath the shadow of the wooden horse. The myth is a tale of cunning strategy, unwavering faith, and the fatal misjudgment that would bring a great city to ruin. It's a story that warns us all. Sometimes the greatest threats come disguised as gifts, and trust can be a double-edged sword. The Trojans' trust, their willingness to believe in the horse's innocence, ultimately sealed their fate and the fate of their city. The Greeks' deception, born of desperation and brilliance, would become legend, retold for generations as a symbol of both ingenuity and warning. The horse stood silent and imposing, a monument to both human creativity and the city's impending doom. The war's end was only the beginning of Troy's destruction, as flames and chaos swept through the once great city. And so, the legend of the Trojan Horse was born, a timeless story of war, deception, and the tragic cost of misplaced trust. To understand the Greeks' desperate trick, we must know Troy itself. Troy was a fortress city, controlling vital trade routes between Europe and Asia. Its massive sloping walls, said to be built by gods, were nearly impenetrable. For a decade, the Greeks tried and failed to breach them. Archaeology at Hisarlik reveals layers of cities, one destroyed by fire around the time of the Trojan War. Troy was real, a wealthy, powerful city, defended by proud warriors and allies. Its people believed their walls made them invincible. King Priam ruled a thriving citadel, home to palaces, temples, and markets. The Trojans' confidence in their defenses was absolute. For 10 years they held out against the Greeks, but even the mightiest walls can fall. The Trojan War wasn't just about land or power, it began with a story of love, jealousy, and betrayal that would echo through the ages. This legendary conflict, immortalized in epic poetry and art, was set in motion by a single, fateful event. At a grand divine wedding, all the gods and goddesses gathered, except Eris, the goddess of discord, who was not invited. In retaliation, Eris tossed a golden apple into the crowd, inscribed with the words, "For the fairest." Instantly, a fierce rivalry erupted between Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite, each claiming the apple for herself. Paris, a young Trojan prince known for his fairness, was chosen to judge between them. Each goddess tried to sway Paris with tempting offers. Hera promised power and kingship, Athena offered wisdom and victory in battle, but Aphrodite promised him the love of Helen, the world's most beautiful woman. Paris awarded the golden apple to Aphrodite, sealing his fate. He gained Helen's love, but also earned the lasting anger of Hera and Athena, who would not forget his choice. Helen, queen of Sparta, and wife to King Menelaus, left her home and husband for Paris, traveling to Troy. This act of passion and defiance shocked the Greek world and sparked outrage across the land. Menelaus, humiliated and furious, called upon his brother Agamemnon and the other Greek kings. They invoked a sacred oath sworn by all of Helen's former suitors to defend her marriage, binding them to action. Soon, 1,000 ships set sail across the Aegean Sea, carrying warriors from every corner of Greece. Their mission, to reclaim Helen and restore their honor no matter the cost. The war that followed was driven not only by pride and alliances but also by the meddling of the gods, who took sides and interfered in mortal affairs. The abduction of Helen was the spark, but beneath the surface the conflict was about ambition, revenge, and the fragile balance between mortals and immortals. The stage was set for a brutal, decade-long siege that would test the limits of heroism and endurance. High above, the gods watched and took sides, their rivalries shaping the fate of both mortals and the city of Troy. In the end, the fate of Troy was sealed by a single choice, echoing through history as a tale of love, vengeance, and the tragic cost of desire. Among legendary warriors, Odysseus stood out for his mind, not his might. The king of Ithaca was a master strategist, whose cleverness would decide Troy's fate. Odysseus tried to avoid the war, but was forced to join by a clever test. Throughout the siege, he advised Agamemnon, negotiated with heroes, and fought bravely. But his greatest contribution was the plan that would end the war. He knew Troy's walls couldn't be taken by force, they had to be tricked. The Trojan Horse was his masterpiece of psychological warfare. It preyed on the Trojans' exhaustion, faith, and hope for peace. Odysseus handpicked the soldiers to hide inside, leading the mission himself. The plan was a gamble, relying on human nature and belief. In the end, it was intellect, not brute strength, that brought Troy down. The Greeks built the horse from sacred wood, making it enormous, too big for Troy's gates. This forced the Trojans to break their own wall, a key part of the trap. To sell the ruse, The Greeks left behind Sinon, a masterful liar. Sinon convinced the Trojans he'd been betrayed and that the horse was a sacred offering to Athena. He claimed the Greeks made it huge to keep it out of Troy, and that bringing it inside would make the city invincible. The Trojans, swayed by his story and a supposed sign from the gods, sea serpents killing Laocoon, believed him. Doubt vanished. The horse was seen as a holy relic. The Trojans decided to bring it inside, convinced it would protect them. The deception was complete. The Greeks' plan relied on faith, fear, and a perfectly timed lie. The horse entered Troy and the city's fate was sealed. Sometimes belief is the deadliest weapon. The Trojans, triumphant, dragged the horse into their city, tearing down their own defenses. The city erupted in celebration, convinced the war was over. The horse stood in the central square as a monument to victory. Feasting and revelry lasted late into the night. Hidden inside, Greek soldiers waited in silence. As Troy slept, Odysseus and his men emerged, killing the sentries and opening the gates. A signal fire summoned the Greek fleet, which had been hiding nearby. The Greeks returned under cover of darkness. The trap was sprung. The Trojans' joy turned to terror. Their own hands had opened the path for destruction. The city's greatest celebration became its last. The end had come from within. The Greek army poured into Troy, meeting little resistance from the sleeping, unprepared Trojans. The attack was swift and merciless. The city that had withstood 10 years of siege fell in a single night. King Priam and his family were killed. The royal palace was destroyed. The women and children were taken as slaves. The city was set ablaze, temples, palaces, homes, all consumed by fire. By dawn, Troy was a smoldering ruin. The Greeks plundered its treasures and sailed home. Their victory was built on deception, not honor. The story of the Trojan horse became a warning. Beware of gifts from your enemies. The fall of Troy marked the end of an era. The legend would outlast the city itself. In silence, Troy vanished from history, but not from memory. The Trojan horse endures as a symbol of cunning and hidden danger. Today, a Trojan horse means a trick, something dangerous disguised as a gift. The story's power lies in its mystery. Was the horse real, a siege engine, or a metaphor for disaster? Archaeology shows Troy was destroyed. Homer's poems give us the legend. The truth is likely a blend of fact and myth. The characters, Achilles, Helen, Agamemnon, Odysseus, have become timeless archetypes. Their story reflects ambition, beauty, pride, and ingenuity. The fall of Troy connects us to a distant past, reminding us that even the strongest walls can fall. The legend is about more than war. It's about human nature and the consequences of our choices. The tale has been retold for generations, living on in our imagination. If you're fascinated by the mysteries of history, subscribe for more. Together we'll keep exploring the stories that bridge myth and reality. The Trojan Horse, a wooden lie that changed the world.